Welcome to Darktopia, where shadows whisper and nightmares come to life. Tonight, we bring you a tale of horror that will send chills down your spine. Are you ready to step into the darkness? Let the terror begin. Andrew, Sammy, and Elise had heard the stories, but, like most people, they dismissed them as mere local legends. A haunted cabin by the lake, they thought, was just a tale to scare away the curious. It was a cold autumn evening when they arrived at the small, weathered cabin nestled at the edge of the lake, surrounded by a dense forest that seemed to whisper in the wind. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the water. The air was damp, and the wooden boards of the cabin creaked beneath their feet as they stepped inside. The cabin was simple, dusty furniture, an old fireplace, and a few flickering candles that struggled to light the darkening room. "This place feels off," Sammy said, rubbing his arms as though the chill had settled deep into his bones. Andrew rolled his eyes. "Don't be ridiculous. It's just an old cabin," Andrew replied, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. Elise was quiet. She stood by the window, staring out at the lake. The water was still, almost unnaturally so, like a sheet of black glass. Something about the silence unnerved her, but she said nothing. As night fell, the cabin grew colder. The wind outside howled, rattling the windows. Andrew threw more wood into the fireplace, but the flames seemed weak, barely enough to warm them. They huddled around it, trying to shake off the creeping cold. Then they heard a soft knock at the door. 3 distinct knocks. Andrew stood up, his face pale. Who could that be? Sammy's eyes widened. "We're in the middle of nowhere." Elise turned slowly toward the door. "Don't open it," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It's not a person." Andrew hesitated. The knock came again, louder this time, more insistent. Something about the sound was wrong, as if it didn't come from human hands. Ignoring Elise's warning, Andrew walked to the door, his hand hovering over the rusted handle. The moment he touched it, the door flung open, as if pulled by an unseen force. A gust of icy wind blew into the cabin, extinguishing the candles and plunging the room into darkness. The 3 of them stood frozen, hearts pounding in their chests. In the doorway, there was no one. Only the vast, empty forest stretched before them. Suddenly, Sammy gasped. "Did you see that?" He pointed toward the trees, his voice barely a whisper. In the distance, between the trees, a figure moved, a tall, shadowy silhouette, watching them. It didn't move closer, but its presence was suffocating, as if it was waiting for something. Its face was hidden in the darkness, but its eyes, they gleamed with an unnatural light, 2 pinpricks of white that seemed to burn into their souls. "We need to leave," Elise whispered, her voice shaking. "Now." They scrambled to gather their things, but as they moved, the cabin seemed to come alive. The walls groaned, the floorboards creaked, and strange whispers filled the air, voices speaking in a language none of them could understand. The temperature dropped even further, their breath visible in the frigid air. Andrew grabbed Elise's hand, pulling her toward the door. Sammy followed close behind, his eyes darting around the room, as if expecting something to leap out of the shadows. As they stepped outside, the cabin doors slammed shut behind them with a deafening bang, as though the cabin itself didn't want to let them leave. They ran through the forest, the trees towering over them like skeletal giants. The wind roared in their ears, but beneath it, they could hear the footsteps, soft, deliberate, and getting closer. The figure was following them. Andrew glanced over his shoulder and saw it again, now closer. The shadow moved with impossible speed, gliding between the trees without making a sound. Its eyes still burned with that terrible light, locking onto them as if they were prey. They reached the lake's edge, breathless and panicked. The water, once calm, was now churning violently, as if something beneath the surface was stirring. "We have to go back," Andrew shouted, but Elise shook her head. "There's no going back," she said, her voice hollow. "It's too late." Before Andrew could respond, the figure emerged from the forest, standing at the edge of the trees. It was closer now, its shape more defined, though still shrouded in darkness. It raised an arm, pointing directly at them, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. Suddenly, Sammy screamed. He was being pulled, dragged toward the water by something unseen. His body writhed and twisted as if invisible hands were gripping him, pulling him toward the lake's cold, dark depths. Andrew and Elise tried to grab him, but it was no use. Sammy's body was lifted off the ground, his screams echoing across the lake as he was pulled beneath the surface. The water swallowed him whole, and in an instant, he was gone. Andrew and Elise stood at the shore, horrified and helpless. The shadowy figure still watched them from the trees, but now it was smiling. A wide, unnatural grin spread across its face, its eyes burning brighter than ever. "We're next," Elise whispered, and as the water began to rise, creeping toward their feet, they knew she was right. You've made it through the darkness, for now, but remember, the shadows are always watching. If you enjoyed this chilling tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next story that haunts the night. Until next time, sleep, if you can.